I decided to treat myself to a short getaway. I live in a flat, boring area, so I picked somewhere with mountains and forests. I chose Colorado but didn't know much about the towns there. The main ones were too expensive, so I looked for Airbnbs in smaller towns. There weren't many options in my price range, but I found one that seemed okay. I booked it and hit the road the next week, driving for 10 long hours to get there. When I arrived, I felt uneasy. The town looked almost like a ghost town, with rows of houses along a dark, empty road. Still, I found the Airbnb easily. It was a small 500-square-foot house, but nicely set up. I dropped my things in the bedroom and went to the kitchen to fill my water bottle and relax before bed. As I stood at the counter, I heard a car on the gravel outside. I looked out the window and saw headlights in front of the house next door. The car turned off and the headlights went out, but no one got out of the car. After a minute, I went back to the kitchen, not wanting them to see me watching. I sat on a bar stool, checked my phone, and told my family I arrived safely. After 15 minutes, I called it a night and went to the bedroom. As I was getting ready for bed, I heard a car door open and close, followed by footsteps. It sounded like someone walking to the house next door. The footsteps stopped suddenly, but I finished getting ready and got in bed. I fell asleep after about half an hour. When I woke up, I had no idea what time it was, but I felt uneasy. Everything was quiet except for the house creaking. I sat up and looked around the dark room. My eyes adjusted, and I saw a pair of eyes looking at me through the uncovered window. My heart jumped, and I froze. After a moment, the figure moved away from the window, but I could still hear faint footsteps nearby. I quickly got out of bed and started getting dressed. Suddenly, I heard a noise outside the bedroom door. Heavy footsteps walked away and down the hallway. I listened as the footsteps moved from inside the house to the gravel path and down the road. Then, I heard a car start and drive off. After some time, I carefully opened the door and walked down the hallway. The front door was wide open, and the night was quiet. I never heard the man by the window leave, but it seemed like he was gone. I reported it to the local police station 20 minutes away, but there was no follow-up. I didn't stay to find out more. I arrived at my last stop before my final destination. It was late, and I was really tired from driving for days. I grabbed my small backpack and went into my Airbnb for the night. It was a random house off the main road, and I didn't look into it much because I only needed a bed to sleep for 8 hours. When I walked in, I smelled something bad. It wasn't a dangerous smell, but it was unpleasant, like a dead animal or mold. I quickly looked around and noticed the smell was stronger in the bedroom, so I decided to stay in the living room. I took a blanket from a chair and set it up on the couch. While doing this, I heard a loud thump through the walls. I wasn't scared, just confused. It was too loud to be the house settling. The sound was hard to pinpoint, so I checked all the rooms, but everything seemed fine. I went back to the couch, continued setting it up, and started planning for the next few days on my phone. A few minutes later, I heard another thump, just like the first one. I checked the rooms more thoroughly, turning on lights and inspecting walls and ceilings, but found nothing. I thought maybe a branch was hitting the roof, but that seemed unlikely. I reminded myself I was only staying one night, so I went back to the couch, turned off the lights, and fell asleep. I slept well, but waking up was strange. My eyes were still closed, and I had a bad feeling in my gut. When I opened my eyes, a man was standing right above me staring. My body tightened, but he quickly ran out the front door. I jumped up and ran after him, but lost sight of him in the trees. I closed the door and went to grab my phone. Then, I noticed something from the corner of my eye, a folding ladder hanging in the middle of the hallway, leading up to the attic. I wasted no time calling for help. The man had been living in the attic, but there wasn't much up there, so he hadn't been there long. It seemed like he was just using the Airbnb as a place to stay, but it was really disturbing. If I hadn't woken up, I don't know what would have happened. This happened a few weeks ago. I went to an Airbnb cabin in the woods for a vacation. I planned a backpacking trip with friends and was staying there for 2 nights before heading out for the rest of the week. When I arrived, I was happy with the place. It was isolated, just a plain cabin, which I loved. I parked my truck, got my gear and went inside. The cabin was small and not very fancy, but it was fine for the price. That night, I went straight to bed and got up early the next morning. The next day, I wanted to check the trail my friends and I would be hiking. I needed to make sure it wasn't too muddy from the recent rain. I made a cup of coffee and relaxed until mid-afternoon, then walked to the main road and down to the trailhead. The trail looked clear and dry, so I didn't walk far before heading back. I was gone for about an hour. When I got back to the cabin, I saw a truck parked out front. I hurried to check it out but didn't see anyone around. The truck was empty and the front door was still locked. I went inside and saw that nobody had entered, which worried me. I double-checked all the rooms and contacted the Airbnb host through the app, asking if anyone else was supposed to be there. As I waited for a response, I kept checking the windows but saw no one. It was strange because the cabin was surrounded by forest, and there was nowhere else to go. Hours passed, and as the sun was setting, I got a text from the host no one else should be there. This made me even more uneasy. I started packing my things to leave. Then, I heard footsteps on the porch. I froze and listened as the steps came up to the door. There was no knock, and after a minute, I looked out the window. A tall man was standing on the doorstep, facing away from the door, staring at the truck. It was creepy, and I felt there might be others out there. I stepped back quietly to call 911, but a floorboard creaked loudly. The man outside heard it and started shaking the doorknob violently. I ran to the bedroom and locked the door, dialing 911. The man banged on the door and then suddenly ran off. A moment later, I heard the truck drive away. The police arrived quickly but couldn't do much. I left the cabin that night and stayed in a hotel. The man wasn't caught, and I still don't know what he was doing. The scariest part was thinking about where he had been the whole time. Was he hiding in the woods or somewhere around the cabin? After this experience, I don't think I'll stay in another remote cabin again.